CONNIE GARTSIDE'S Triumph, Chapter 12. Tuesday morning dawned. The sky was overcast and grey with the texture and colour of week-old porridge, as Rosie was to later describe it to Connie. The younger girl wouldn't bother asking a friend when she'd ever seen porridge that had been left untouched for a week, suspecting, not without good reason, she wouldn't receive a sensible answer. For once Rosie was out of bed and dressed first. Her spirits were buoyant, so much so that she'd escaped downstairs without the other girl's knowledge, and careful to keep it that way. Eventually she re-entered the room, 2 steaming cups of tea in her hands. Connie remained fast asleep, her carroty red hair spread over her pillow in a fan of gleaming bright red gold. "Wakey, wakey, here's a brew." She placed her friend's drink on the bedside table, careful not to knock over the artificial limb stood upright next to it, and then shook her exposed shoulder gently with her freed hand. Connie gave out a soft groan and turned, blinking her green feline eyes in the early morning daylight. "There's a cup of tea for you." Rosie sat down on her own bed, watching her best friend slowly coming back to life. "Thanks," she eventually sighed. "I'll let it cool down for a moment." Jack O'Donnell emerged from Ralph's workshop with a list in his hand and retreated into the farmhouse. Elsie informed him there was tea in the pot. He nodded but didn't speak. He sat down at the kitchen table with her and perused his list thoughtfully before extracting a pen from his inside pocket and adding to it. He looked up at last, obviously satisfied with his work. "May I use your phone, Elsie?" She nodded her agreement, and he rose and walked across the room to make his call, looking at the old grandfather clock as he did so. It was coming up to 8:10. At 2 o'clock that afternoon, Rosie Ackroyd, Connie and Ralph Gartside, and Mikey Grimsditch left the farm and began a short walk down Colwell Clough, accompanied by Jack O'Donnell and Titch. Grandad had informed Rosie and the others they were going to the Sportsman to meet a friend of his, who would no doubt prove helpful to them. Approaching the pub, Rosie's eyes lit up. She ran forward, Titch at her heels. A tandem leant against the pub wall, with bulging pannier bags front and rear. A collection of aluminium cooking equipment, a small kettle and a zig bottle for paraffin hung from the rear panniers. A green bag, which she knew contained a mountain tent, together with 2 rolled carry mats, were strapped across the top of the bags. The others soon joined her. Ralph began to examine the tandem frame in detail. It was stove-enamelled a plain black, but the lugs were fancy with diamond cutouts and ornate, delicately filed fleur-de-lis picked out in gold. The head badge comprised a white oval, with a narrow red border outlined in black. This outer oval sported gold letters proclaiming "Hand-built frame sets, Manchester." The centre of the badge portrayed the black silhouette of a swift, soaring on outstretched wings, with the maker's signature above it, and the slogan, "Swift and True," beneath it. "Is Tom with Malc, Grandad?" "I expect so. Where else would he be?" "Who's Tom?" Connie asked. Rosie smiled. "He's about 10, and he's another feral child, doomed to become a villain like your Mikey and me. His dad's a bicycle frame builder, and another single parent. We used to live near them in Levenshulme." She led the way into the pub, looking round for her friends. They were nowhere to be seen. She turned to tell her grandfather, puzzled only to discover he'd remained outside with the others. "Hiya, Rosie." She swung round and laughed. "Trust you to be hiding in an alcove near the door, Tom, ready for a quick getaway, no doubt." The boy and his dad laughed. The latter stood up. "Where's your grandad, Rosie? Do you want something to drink?" "He's with my friends admiring your tandem. Could I have orange squash, please, with tap water? No ice." At that point the rest entered, and Rosie went to grab a seat next to Tom. "Long time no see, little one," she said. Tom smiled. It was a long time since Rosie had called him little one. She used to babysit him. "How are you, Rosie?" "Great," she responded. "Oh, this is my friend Connie, and her boyfriend Mikey." Connie grinned and Mikey blushed. "Come on, you two, sit down. This is my friend Tom. He won't bite." "Is it hard?" Connie asked, looking into the young boy's hazel eyes as she sat opposite him. "What?" he asked, looking puzzled. "Peddling the tandem." He leant forward as if to let her into her confidence. "Don't tell me Dad, will you, Connie? I just sit there in the toe clips and let my feet go round, giving out a few grunts when we're struggling uphill. Dad does all the work." Rosie laughed. "Don't be a fibber, Tom Cowle. Do you think I could have a go?" "Ask me, Dad. I'm sure it'll take you for a spin, Connie." He looked across to the bar. Mr. O'Donnell, a youth, and his father seemed deep in conversation whilst they waited to be served. "Best leave it till tomorrow. He'll soon be on his second pint. It takes a great deal of skill to steer the bike from the back when he's had a skinful. I've been on that tandem since my 4th birthday, and I'm only just getting the hang of it." Connie grinned. She was beginning to like this youngster. "What brought you up here, Tom?" Rosie suddenly asked. "Your granddad. He phoned Dad this morning. We're going to camp over the road." "No, you mustn't," Connie intervened. "You can camp in our paddock free of charge, and then you can eat with us as well." Initially, Tom had been a little miffed when his father had said they were riding out to Hayfield and would be camping for a few days. Not that he wasn't used to camping in cold weather, or disliked riding on the tandem, far from it. He loved cycling and camping. The fly in the ointment was the fact that Manchester City Council had organised a bonfire and fireworks spectacular in a local park that self-same evening, and he'd been looking forward to it for weeks. Now, however, he was glad they had come. Rosie's friends were brilliant company and made a great deal of fuss over him, not least because he was the youngest, as had Mr. and Mrs. Gartside. The fact they were camping on the farm was an added bonus. Mrs. Gartside had refused his father's offer of payment and wouldn't be contradicted. His father was always a bit strapped for cash, but Tom knew that any cut in camping fees would give him the opportunity to insist on his fair share of the money saved. And, to add icing to the cake, the bonfire and fireworks in the quarry proved to be brilliant. Moreover, he was convinced the proceedings were far superior to that enjoyed by his schoolmates back in Burnage, where he now lived. He snuggled up in his sleeping bag that night, a happy and contented lad, wondering what delights the next day would bring. Perhaps Dad would take him to Edale. They camped there at least once a year, and he had friends in the village his own age. "What do you think of young Tom?" Connie looked across to her friend, who was already tucked up beneath her duvet. She finally had her leg off and placed it by the side of the bed. She swung the stump and her left leg onto the bed, pulling the duvet over her body in the process. "He's really nice. He's got an amazing sense of humour." Rosie laughed. "He has to have to cope with his dad, I expect." Connie frowned. "What's wrong with his dad?" "Nothing, but he's not your average kind of man." "How do you mean?" "Well, he's brought Tom up more or less on his own since the lad was 22 months old, and he's brought him up on the back of a bike, first in a child seat on a normal race bike, and then, when Tom was coming up to 4, he built a tandem. When Tom was 5, they cycled from Manchester to the Isle of Skye and back in the school holidays, camping on the way." "The Isle of Skye? That's Scotland, isn't it?" "Yes, off the west coast and way beyond Glasgow. I'll show you on the map tomorrow. It's miles and miles away. They've cycled all over the place. They spent the last summer holidays cycling round Ireland for 5 weeks. His dad's taking me to New Mills on it tomorrow." "New Mills?" "Yes. Your granddad's asked him to pick up the tubing for another 2 sledges, and when I asked if I could have a go on the tandem, he said I could go with him. I know where the warehouse is." "Did you tell him about your leg?" "No, but what's my leg to do with it?" "Have you ever ridden a bike?" "No. Ralph's got an old one in the barn, but it's too big for me." "I think you'd better tell Malc. Cycling's quite different from walking. Your leg's moving with a circular motion when you're cycling. But the top half of my leg and my knee joints are completely normal. But your foot and your ankle aren't. You need to tell him." Connie frowned. "All right, but I'm sure it will be fine." She leant over to switch off the table lamp. "Sleep tight. Watch the bugs don't bite."